Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday to you all over here. Don't know why Facebook and I we always have a little troubles on Mondays. It's still sleeping. Good morning, man. It is just great seeing you. What's up, Chad? We got Scott's here. Colin from Seattle's here. Sandy is here. Amy, good morning, Amy. It's been a fun morning for me here, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna share with you a little bit of my fun that I've been having. Good morning, good morning. Please say it in the chat. Good morning. I don't even know. I'm just Mondays. You just never know who you're gonna get on Mondays. It's just a great week. It's the start of the week. It's the end of the first quarter, and it's the end of the month. I was kind of like going through my laundry list of all the different things that are happening this week. I got a father-daughter dance coming up this Friday. So I had to do some dress shopping, some shoe shopping. Let me just tell you, shoe shopping with a 10-year-old and a 4-year-old, I don't recommend it. I don't recommend. If you are working on patience, though, it's a very good way to start. It's a very good way to start. Let me just tell you, you have to bring a lot of it. Bryce was running everywhere. But good morning. Good morning, Facebook world. Let me get the good morning, Karen. As always, Karen's always here. So good morning. My name is Brock Zevan. I'm a life coach, business coach, real estate agent, and a dad. And boy, it was full dad mode this weekend. We had soccer. Brielle has a contusion on her foot. Somebody slide tackled into her. There's no school today. Why? Just because it's a teacher work day. I think the school district just likes to be like, you know what? I think parents got it going well. Let's cause a no school day. So we have that going on. We planted a garden this weekend. Bryce, unfortunately, we woke up this morning, peed the bed. And then the smoke alarm decided it doesn't want to go off like in the middle of the day, like in the evening. It wants to go off like you know how it beeps? It decides to beep because the battery's low at 4:55 this morning. Like it couldn't be in the afternoon. It has to be in the morning. So I'm outside doing my walk. I just have to share the story. I'm outside doing my walk. Okay, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. It's peaceful, it's quiet, it's calm. And I do it in my cul-de-sac. And here's the exact reason why our situation's like this. Bryce opens the door, screaming and crying. Brielle's calling me like it's like in the middle of the day. I just feel bad for my neighbors. I mean, it was a show at 5 o'clock this morning. Let me just tell you, it has just been a fun morning. But here we are, everybody. Here we are. Happy Monday to you, and we are going strong today. So on Mondays, I have not been able to talk to Mike yet, but on Mondays, I've been going into the John Maxwell of the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. And today's one that I've been reviewing and studying is a good one. And it's called the law of the lid, the law of the lid. And so this one here is actually one of the first laws that he has. Now, I don't think there's any special order, but I like to think they are inside my head because the first one to me really resonated with me. And for those that are taking notes, I thought this was a really good one. And I'm going to share with you some of the things that I personally thought when I was reading it about my personal life on some questions I'm going to share with you today. And so my first two questions I'm going to have that I want to explain as we go forward with it. Are you born a leader or are you made a leader? And I'm going to share with you my answer when I get done with this. And so when I read the law of the lid, one of the things that I've learned is a story that I have of a flea. And some of you might have heard my flea story. But the flea story is a little bit different when I heard this story with John Maxwell. But part of the flea story I interpreted is I want you to imagine a mayonnaise jar. And the mayonnaise jar is screwed on and you can't get out of it, needless to say, but there's a flea inside of it. Okay. And the flea inside of it is actually the president of the company. And maybe in the case that you are of your own self, you might be the president of your own company. Most of us are 1099, so we're the president of our own company. Okay. And we are go-getters, right? We talked about made a leader or born a leader. And so we have that, whatever it is that you think, we are that flea and we are inside of it. And we, as that flea, are freaking just like we are go-getters and we are a little stubborn. And we're going and we're jumping. And I don't know if you know this, but a flea actually can jump really high. They are known to jump close to 2 to 3 feet. And so that's why fleas, when they say there's flea problems with animals, it's why is because they have that ability to do that. And so this flea, the president, keeps jumping up and he keeps hitting himself on the lid. Okay. And it just like he hits his head, he hits his head, he hits his head. And how many of you might be in that position right now where you keep hitting your head? You're just like, man, why is this not working? Okay. And over time, what takes place is the president just gets to a certain point of wherever that lid is, and that leader, AKA the president, just stops. And they only get to a certain degree. Now, bear with me on this. Now, this is a story, everybody. And let's just say magically, more fleas end up in the jar. Okay. And he has to hire people. Right. And so now there's more fleas in the jar because the president's like, well, I don't want to be the only one. I got to have some other people. So he has other fleas that come inside this jar. And remember, it's a story. And so he tells all the people, the other fleas in the, he says, listen, everybody, I want to help you, but I just want you to know that that we can only go this far. But I really want you to guys work with me, but we're only going to go to this extent of the lid. So I don't want you to try because I've already tried it. I've done it numerous times. So these other people who he hires, he's limiting them right away by just telling them like, hey, this is as far as we can go because this is as far as I've gotten. So we share this. Okay. And so these other people, they never go as far as they possibly can go. And maybe there's somebody in your life right now that could be limiting where you want to go. One of the best lines I like Chad shared with us is he was climbing this ladder, but the ladder was on the wrong building. Right? He thinks he's climbing, he thinks he's going, and he kept going and kept going. But he's like, wait a minute, I don't know if this is the right building. Now, same thing goes into true where same thing happens with the law of the lid, is that I keep being the limiting beliefs in this lid, we keep hitting it. Okay. Now, one of the things I wrote down here is the higher you want to climb, the more you need leadership. The greater the impact you want to make, the greater your influence needs to be. Now, explain this to me on how this could be in a play when the leader is telling everybody before they even come in, hey, this is where the lid is, guys. This is where we stop. See, I'm going to share with you out of this story here. Many of you, how many of you run your own show? How many of you are your own boss? How many of you are your own boss, right? Now, they say the most successful people in the personality of the disc, your most successful rich people, okay? The most richest successful people, if you want to know their personality, they are a D and they are a C. A DC are typically your most successful people, okay? One of our guests will be coming on this Friday, was a D and a C. He's the same age as me. I worked with him in the pool industry, and he sold his company for, I don't even know, like over $20 million. Same age as me, but he was his C. Both of us were D's, but I wasn't a C. He was a C. So a C actually manages money a lot better. They double check things. They're very strategic on what they do, and that's why a D and C. So a D and an I can be successful and they can run a company, but they really need to hire a CFO, okay, in the scheme of it. So Lori, what happens is when you run your own company, one of the things I do when I'm coaching people is I make them do the disc, and then I ask them their organization flow chart, or their organization model, and where they are in their business. And so most of the time, the people I work with, they're saying, well, I'm the president, I'm the leader. So what has to happen is I say, okay, well, let's take a look at your disc. And I look at their disc and I will see that they are an I or an S, or I will see they're S and a C. Most of the time they're an I with an S and a C. And I said, well, I understand what your problem is. And they're like, well, how do you know that? I said, you've been titled a D, but you're not a D. Okay. I'm going to say that again. You've been titled a D because there's nobody else to take the place, because I told you to be a president, to be a leader, you have to have a D in you because you have to make some hard decisions. See, what I've learned is a failure is part to success. That is part of it. It is your way to success is you have to fail. What I've learned is excuses to success is not a good path. And see, what happens is most people have more excuses than they have failures. And so it's very difficult to get to the success path because the excuses typically are finger pointing. So what happens is if you are the leader and the law of the lid, you keep having excuses, it's hard for you to break through. And see, when you're placed in a title of a D and you're really not a D, I'm going to go back to, are you born a leader or made a leader? See, when I was growing up and I shared with you my personal story, or I'm going to share with you like how I started to think about this personally, because I'm like, well, Brock, you are the president of your company. Okay. I run my own show. I'm a 1099. I'm a team leader. I had 18 people plus employees at one point on my team. I don't have that anymore. So was I born a leader, made a leader? How did I get to the position I am today? And I wrote down this: I've grown into a leader. So to me, I was born a leader, but I didn't really understand it quite yet. I had to work on being made a leader, but you just don't get placed into leadership like some of us are. You have to grow into it. The next level that I learned is I used to make excuses. And so the book Extreme Ownership, I strongly recommend you reading, is when I decided to take excuses and shift them into ownership, my life started to change. See, when you have ownership, failure will happen. The more you fail, the better you become. And what happens to that lid when you fail, if you're visual like I am, that lid starts to unloosen. That lid starts to come off that mayonnaise jar. And one of the things that took place is that when John Maxwell was in San Diego, he was working with this company with the global industry. And what they would do is they would go to resorts and they would find the guy, his name is Don Stevenson, was the owner of this company. And so what he would do is he would go to like resorts that were failing, and they were financially failing. Remember, a D and a C. Okay, they were financially failing. So this DC would go into the company and say, I'm going to buy out your company. And so one of these days that John was listening to the guy, Don, and Don ended up becoming his mentor. Here's the key ingredient of being successful as well, guys. Ask more questions. You're not asking enough questions to the people who are higher above you. Okay. When I do some of my calls and when I do my mentee calls or I do coaching calls or I do things, I'm like, does anybody have any questions? Nobody has any questions. I'm constantly asking people questions. Poor Coach Bert. Like I freaking like have questions to that guy like all the time. I'm like, hey, what about this? I'm doing this. I don't understand this. This person said this to me. How can I do this differently? And now with the John Maxwell, I'm like, I'm able to ask more questions. So John goes to Don, his mentor, and he says, so when you take these companies over, what do you do? He says, well, it's very simple. I do two things. Okay, we're all 1099. I'm about to give you two important ingredients. Two important ingredients that I've learned. One is he says that we started to train for elite customer service. Okay. See, the people who are working in the business, they didn't have the skills and the knowledge to be able to communicate. How do I have such a high conversion rate when I go on my appointments? Is because I've learned the skills, what to say, what questions to ask. I understand their personality, so I can go in the right direction that I have. Because people have problems, the lid, their limiting beliefs, and I help unloosen that lid. So they train all these people on how to communicate, how to speak. Okay. Chad, he's on here. I see him. And so Chad was just at a coaching clinic with Coach Burt, and they had to speak in front of their peers. Why do they do that? Is to help build their skills from the knowledge they already have and the skills to be able to speak in front of people. And so the second thing that Don does when he goes into a company, number one, remember, was to help work on their skills and their knowledge. So that could be something that you can do to help you unloosen your lid. But number two is you need to fire yourself. Okay. Number two was he fired the president. And what happened is when I lost 18 people and I had my heartaches and my challenges, is I decided, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was firing myself. And see, if you were a D or you're growing into a leadership, when you fire yourself, how many of you on here, I'm going to ask you guys a real serious question. If you were to fire yourself, would you just, go to bed and cry and be like, you know what, I guess maybe I'm going to do something else. Maybe I'm going to go into a different job. I mean, I've been out of school for 10 years now from teaching. Is it possible, by a show of hands, is it possible that I could have went back into the education? I mean, I have my master's degree. I could go being a principal. Is it possible that I could just, like, after I fired myself, you know what? I'm going to go back to teaching because, you know what, that was easier for me. How many of you could go back to your previous job? How many of you could find another job in your area, in your community? I know, like grocery stores, you could go back to that other job and you can do that, but you're not, and you're here today. How many of you are still here today? So when I fired myself, and what Don did was he fired the head person. And John Maxwell, he was even in the story, and he goes, wait a minute, you fired the president? Like, why didn't you just like have a rah-rah? Why didn't you like motivate him? Why didn't you like sing kumbaya? Why didn't you be like, hey, bud, let's see what you got going on here? And it was funny in the way they presented it. So I'm trying to say the same thing, but you guys will get my drift. He goes, John, if the president was any good, I wouldn't be buying the company. It'd be a no-brainer. It'd be like, this guy, they've been running this organization for how many years? He didn't do it. So he's not going to do it. I'm not going to do anything different to him. And here's the other thing, that when I reflected on it, his habits and behaviors of this previous president haven't changed. So even if I tried, if he's not putting forth any effort, why would I? If me as the company, the new owner, if I'm going to put forth effort, I'm going to put it on a new person. I'm going to bring somebody in. And so when I envisioned myself, when I fired myself, I said, you know what, Brock, you gotta unloosen this lid. You got to unloosen yourself because you have a lot of potential. But you know what your problem is? You know what's tightening that lid is the excuses. So when you change the excuses to failures, this lid will start to unloosen and you'll take ownership and you'll move in the direction that I need you to move in. And so then I'll be released. And when the law of the lid goes up, there's a gap of growth. And you can have the opportunity to grow, and you can close that gap, and you can move closer to the leadership that you were meant to be. And so when I read the law of the law of the lid is basically the same thing of growing leadership. So those that aren't a D, you have to grow into leadership, but we all have room to grow. We all have opportunities because there's books like this all across this world that you can read. There's people that you can help that can coach you. There's opportunities all around you to be able to grow into the leadership that you need to become. And guess what? Growth is hard. Growth is not easy. But if you are able to nurture yourself, get around the right people, Some of you emailed me and texted me over the weekend. There's people who have reached out to me in the past week. It's an opportunity to be able that you said, you know what? I need to grow. I don't know what it is yet, but I need to get some water on me. I need to get some fertilizer. I had an opportunity to plant with my kids this weekend. We planted a garden. And it is a cool feeling to have people come up to me as we're in the seed aisle. Let me just tell you, it's a little entertaining. I think I call it entertainment for people because like Bryce and Brielle are fighting on what seeds we're going to plant in this garden. They think we have like 4 acres, I think. And I'm like, guys, we only have this small little garden. I can't plant everything. But I'm teaching them to plant seeds. I'm teaching them the right soil. I'm teaching them that they have to water. I'm teaching them that the sun's going to come out. I'm teaching them that what they need to do is they have to plant and they have to take ownership of being able to like, all right, we're going to have to come out here now every day. We're going to have to water. We're going to have to weed. We're going to have to get ourselves in a position to be able to grow, to close the gap, to be able to increase our leadership, to remove our lid, to being able to have opportunities. So for those of you that I'm speaking to today, that you need to take your disc, go to the Tony Robbins, pay the extra money, because I know at some point you're going to go out to dinner instead of spending $100 on the dinner, go and spend it on the growth of the Tony Robbins disc and understand who you are. Because if you are not a high D, then you need to have a self-reflection about yourself to see where you are, to say, okay, maybe I need to be coached up by somebody who's a D. Maybe I need to read books who somebody's like a D, because remember I said you can grow into leadership if you want it really bad. I'm living proof of it. I was a school teacher, for crying out loud. I had 0 business skills. I had 0 business classes. I took badminton, pickleball, which I do love pickleball now. I took sports. I took kinesiology. I studied my body is what I did. I took biomechanics. It wasn't business mechanics. I had to grow into becoming a leader. I had to fire myself several times, and I had to change my behaviors, and I had to change my patterns, and I had to take ownership. So when I read the law of the lid, I decided to make some changes, and I decided that I need to grow, because who's the president of your company? Who's the president of your company, guys? You run your own show. We're all 1099s on here. Most of us are. I don't force you on this call at 8:15. For those of you, depending on your time change, I don't force you on here. There's a reason why you come on here, for value. I just don't show up and start talking out of the blue. I study this. I look at this to make sure that I'm prepared to give you value, because if I don't, I'm not growing myself. So for today, I speak to you to understand yourself. You must understand yourself before you can start to go and do other things, before you can start to increase your leadership, to unloosen that lid. See how I like to do that? I like to do that like a lid, like there's a lid, right? See, I should just do this. Here's the lid. Chad always has he always has props. I need to have props. I'm listening to the lid, right? See, he's got a water bottle. He always has a water bottle. So guys, that's what I got today. That's the law of the lid. I strongly recommend you reading the book. I strongly recommend Mr. Kastner, Mornings with Mike here, where we didn't even get to talk. So Mike didn't even know what I was even going to talk about today. I don't know if you got anything you want to add, Mike, on your morning show or anything like that the last couple minutes here, but I always like to open up to hear what you got.
No, I just thought it was really good, man. Excellent. I loved it. I never saw the disc from that point of view, but that does make a lot of sense. So no, great message. Thank you.
Mr. Kastner, always driving. You never know where that guy's going. He's always moving and shaking. Guys, if anybody's got a question for me or anything they want to ask, we got a couple minutes here. I'll open up the line if anybody wants to have a conversation or make a comment or anything that they initially, or maybe they self-reflected on yourself today. For those in the chat world, I know I didn't do as much engagement as I wanted, but the law of the lid to me was just something that really struck to me today when I was reviewing it again. And I was like, what is my message going to be? A lot of times I'm like, all right, God, what am I going to say today? Besides fire alarms and Bryce peeing the bed. Anybody got anything that they would like to add or say? I know it's crazy. Sometimes I just laugh at my life. All right, I'm not going to force anybody to talk. I'm not going to force it. Well, guys, if nobody's got anything, we will end ourselves a little short today. Give you guys a little extra on your schedule to be able to get going. Is this a quiet week? Yes, it is a quiet week. I don't have any coaching this week, not that I know of. If you are in town, okay, I'm doing Chat GPT. If you don't know Chat GPT, not Chad GPT, but Chat GPT, I brought in somebody who's really, really good on the Chat GPT. And we're going to be doing that in April 18th. For those that want to travel, Sandy and I are doing a boot camp in Charlotte, literally a boot camp in Charlotte, and we will come to you personally. You will bring in your deals, but we will talk more about that. That's April 25th. And remember, Coach Burt comes in May 2nd. May 2nd, Coach Burt is going to be here. So towards the end of the month, and beginning of May, we got a lot of great things going on. Beginning of April, I got spring break. So, that's what I got in my personal life. Guys, if you need anything from me, as always, please feel free to reach out to me. Feel free. Some of you have already been doing Chat GPT. Yeah, AI, Jasper, all these things. These are tools for you to be able to help your business. I mean, it's crazy. It's actually scary to some extent. So I'm excited. I get to speak. I'm speaking with Cullen later today. Excited to talk to him. Got a couple other appointments with several of you guys. I appreciate everybody. Chad, our boy Chad, is going to be on tomorrow at 8:15. For anybody interested, I do have a prayer call. Take a look at the Brock Zevan Mindset Motivation page at 7:30 Eastern time. I'm on a prayer call. That's why sometimes I'm late, because there's a lot of prayers and praise reports. So I do that at 7:30 on Tuesdays. Chad will be here tomorrow at 8:15. I appreciate you all. Have a phenomenal week. Finish the quarter strong. Start the second quarter strong. So you can finish strong and start the second quarter strong all at the same time. Remove your lid today, guys. Remove your lid. Do some self-reflecting of where you are. Grow into that leadership. Love yous. God bless you. See you guys tomorrow at 8:15.